This is part 2 of the lecture notes for chapter 21. This is an image of Giardia under an electron microscope, obviously, because you see such detail. Giardia is a diplomonad, and remember the diplo was because it had 2 nuclei, and then it also had 2 sets of flagella, and you can see one set here, and then you can see one set here, kind of coming around from the back. But there definitely are 2 sets, and the Giardia will make an imprint. I think this is like one of those things that's got a bunch of pins, and so when the Giardia lays on that, then it forms an indention. But anyway, the main thing is it causes diarrhea, and this is a picture of it under a light microscope. So not as much detail. You can't see the flagella, but that's about as good as I have looked at a lot of images of Giardia under the microscope, and this one is really good compared to some of the ones I've seen. Now this is a good micrograph right here. Trichomonas vaginalis, remember, causes an STD, and it is a parabacillid. And this is an image under an electron microscope. Okay, now the euglenozoans are our last members of the excavata. They are small freshwater unicellular organisms. They do have a mitochondria. They lack a cell wall and just have proteins that encircle the cell. This group includes free-living euglenids, which you'll hear me call those euglena, and then parasitic kinetoplastids. And the euglenids are asexual and single-celled. They live in freshwater environments. They have 2 flagella, and then they have an eye spot that's red that it just responds to light. It just helps them detect light, and they swim toward it. The cell is bounded by a flexible pellicle, which is made of proteins. It does not have a cell wall. And here we can see some euglena. You see their eye spot. You definitely see all the green chloroplast. And there are actually 2 flagella. There's a long one and a short one. But they are mixotrophs. That's the biggest thing, is that they're mixotrophs. They are able to consume food, and they are able to make their own food with their chloroplast, carry out photosynthesis. So these are the euglena. And again, you're going to have a virtual lab with euglena. All right, now the kinetoplastids are also unicellular. They also have flagella. They're named for a kinetoplast, which is a large mass of DNA in their mitochondria. Remember that what distinguishes the excavata is that they either don't have mitochondria or there's something abnormal about their mitochondria. Okay, so the Trypanosoma brucei is a kinetoplastid that causes African sleeping sickness, and it's transmitted by the tsetse fly. So don't get this confused with Plasmodium, because Plasmodium is the one that causes malaria. So they're really close because malaria is carried by mosquito, but African sleeping sickness is carried by the tsetse fly. And the protozoan that causes African sleeping sickness is Trypanosoma brucei, or you can just remember Trypanosoma. And they actually do, under a microscope, they look like little purple, wavy, worm-like structures, and that's how they move, is in a worm-like fashion. They do have flagella, though, but they kind of undulate like a worm, worm does. But if you were to take a red blood cell smear of someone's blood who had African sleeping sickness, you would find these little parasites in their blood. These are red blood cells, and then the little purple worm-like thing. Then this is more what it would look like under our light microscopes in lab. And this is actually a really good image here. You can see the trypanosoma really clearly. And the other round cells are red blood cells. Okay, so that was the excavata. Let's go back and review. Okay, the supergroup excavates contain the diplomonads, parabasalids, and euglenozoans. From the diplomonads, you need to know the example that I want you to know is Giardia. From the parabasalids, I want you to know the Trichomonas vaginalis. And from the euglenozoans, I want you to know the kinetoplastid and the euglena. So here's the euglena and the trypanosoma. Just remember trypanosoma is fine. Trypanosoma genus, it can be different species. Trypanosoma brucei, for example, is the specific species that causes African sleeping sickness. So it's a kinetoplastid. So these are all of our excavata, and now we're going to go into our largest supergroup, the chromalveolata, and it contains the alveolates and straminopiles. The alveolates have small alveoli, like the air sacs in our lungs. That's what they're named for. So they have small air sacs or alveoli beneath their plasma membrane, and that's what gives them their name. The alveolates include the dinoflagellates, apicomplexans, and ciliates. The straminopiles include the diatoms, golden brown algae, and oomycetes. All right, for dinoflagellates, I just really want you to know that we have one example that they're called zooxanthellae. They're found living inside corals, and a coral is an animal that's actually related to a jellyfish. It just produces a shell that we see after the animal dies. We see it as, coral that you see in the coral reefs, and sometimes people will decorate their aquariums with coral. Sometimes it's fake, but sometimes it's real. Anyway, so there are dinoflagellates that live symbiotically within the corals, zooxanthellae. And then there are dinoflagellates that release a toxin, and it causes something known as red tide that can lead to fish kills. And it's really, really dangerous for people to consume shellfish when there is a red tide in the water. And that species is called Alexandrium catenella. So species of dinoflagellates causes red tide, and this is the cellulose plate on the outside, and then you can see the flagella. One wraps around the middle and then one extends. This is what it looks like under the microscope. You can see the middle area where there's a flagella wrapped around, and I don't see the other one. And this is what it looks like, what they call red tides, close to the shore in marine water. And you can see fish kills, and that's what it's resulting from. Okay, now another group from the alveolates are called apicomplexans, and the most important one I want you to remember is the Plasmodium. Plasmodium is the protozoan that is responsible for malaria. It is transmitted by a mosquito. And in the life cycle, I just want to point out, just because I know the quiz questions ask this. Okay, part of their life cycle that occurs inside human red blood cells is when they reproduce, it's asexual reproduction. They actually reproduce sexually in the mosquito. So they actually, sexual reproduction occurs in their mosquito host, and then the asexual phase occurs in the red blood cells. And this is what they look like. It's the lighter colored ones. This here is a red blood cell. This is a red blood cell. So most of the cells on this page are red blood cells. This one and this one and this one that are faint, they actually look like white blood cells. But these purple stained structures are, and they don't look like much under the microscope, I can tell you, but those are the Plasmodium vivax. All right, now the other group within the alveolates are the ciliates, and I definitely want you to know, for the ciliates, I definitely want you to know about paramecium, okay? So the paramecium is covered with cilia. And another example is the Ichthyopteris, which is an ectoparasitic protozoan. And what that means is it lives on the outside of the fish, and it causes a fish disease called ick. Ichthyopteris. That's how you would say that. Anyway, it causes fish ick. This is a paramecium. All of these on the left side of the page are paramecium. You see the cilia on the outside. It's kind of got an oval shape otherwise. It is a heterotroph. It takes food in through this oral groove. And this one that you see on the right is called a stentor. It actually has cilia here that helps draw food into this opening, and unlike the paramecium, it just kind of stays in one spot. It's attached to a substrate. And these are two paramecium that are exchanging DNA, exchanging nuclei. It's called conjugation. It's a way that they can get a form of sexual reproduction. Now, and so they can get genetic variety. Now, the next groups that I'm going to go through are the straminopiles. They include the diatoms, which have a silica shell or a glass shell. They are a significant portion of the plankton comes from diatoms. Diatoms form into diatomaceous earth. Diatomaceous earth is made of the remains of diatoms, and it can be used as a filtering agent, soundproofing material, or a polishing abrasive, because basically it's just glass, sandy glass. Here is a good picture, and I would encourage you to Google diatom images because, they're just really amazing. In fact, I'm going to do it real fast. I think I can get out of one thing and do another thing. Diatoms. I'm just making sure that this is getting us. All right, so here are, see, these are purple, but they're all different shades. See how beautiful they are? You can just scroll through and look, but they're like microscopic in size, but yet so detailed and so color. They remind me of stained glass. Oh, that one's pretty. But anyway, all of their shells have a two-part case, kind of like a shoe box or a hat box, but that's how the shell is organized. And then, within that design, they're made of glass, and they have all different colors and detail within that glass shell. That's another one that's pretty. Okay, I'll go back to the notes now. We don't have to waste too much time. Okay, then we have, after the diatoms, we have the golden brown algae. And this is a picture of a typical golden brown algae. It's unicellular. It has two flagella, one's hairy and one's not. Then there's brown algae. Some are small and some are large multicellular forms. Laminaria is a kelp, a type of kelp, common in the intertidal seaweeds. They can be used as a thickener for foods like ice cream. There's some examples of brown algae. And then you have the oomycetes, or water molds, and one of them caused the potato famine in Ireland in the 18